Hello and welcome, adventurers. I am Great Weapon Master, and today we'll be looking at the top 10 feats for melee characters in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Before we dive in, it is important to note that there are many feats not mentioned in this video, which are perfectly serviceable for characters with the right build. At the end of the day, D&D is a role-playing game, emphasis on role, and certain feats really do lend themselves to specific character builds. The Draconic Ancestry feats featured in Fizzbands are a perfect example of this. Nonetheless, for those of you power gamers who are looking for a quick list of the most mechanically efficient choices for melee characters, I assure you, you have come to the right place. Starting off the list with some honorable mentions, we have Dual Wielder, Poisoner, Grappler, Piercer, Crusher, Defensive Duelist, and Shield Master. Almost affords itself its own list, huh? I won't do a deep dive into these selections as they are more thematic choices, ergo you need a pretty specific character build or weapon choice to use them. But I did want to at least mention them as they're not only thematically awesome, but mechanically powerful as well. So, with honorable mentions out of the way, coming in at number 10 we have Heavy Armor Master. As you can see here, you can use your armor to deflect strikes that would kill others. You gain the following benefits. Increase your strength score by 1 to a maximum of 20. While you are wearing heavy armor, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that you take from non-magical attacks is reduced by 3. Ever been jealous of the Barbarian Rage's damage resistance? With this feat, you've essentially got a lighter version of it. The reason the Barbarian's damage resistance is so good is because the large majority of monsters deal non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. In the early game, it's very much arguable that Heavy Armor Master even outpaces Barbarian Rage in damage reduction. You want to pick this feat up as early as possible to get the most use out of it. However, even at high levels, ticking 3 damage away from most attacks tends to add up, especially when you're facing encounters that include a lot of minions. And let's not forget the strength score increase, which makes this feat an especially good choice for any character with an odd strength score. Speaking of being tanky, at number 9 we have Tough. As you'll see here, your hit point maximum increases by an amount equal to twice your level when you gain this feat. Whenever you gain a level thereafter, your hit point maximum increases by an additional 2 points. While fairly simple, Tough is the perfect feat to increase the longevity of your frontline fighting. 2 hit points might not seem like a lot at level 1, but by level 5 you already increased your hit points by a total of 10. That's an entire additional hit die added to your life pool. The nicest thing about this feat is that it scales as your character levels, eventually giving you 20 additional hit points at level 10 and 40 additional hit points at level 20. Another way of thinking about Tough is that it allows you to withstand one more attack than you would be able to without it. And with most combats lasting from 3 to 5 rounds, an additional round of attacking and soaking up damage is a huge boon for not only you, but the wimpy wizards standing behind you as well. Now, while wizards may be wimpy, they trade bodily might for the ability to dish out devastating effects across the battlefield, and their magics can make them especially annoying to deal with. Enter our number 8 choice on the list, Mage Slayer. As you can see here, you have practiced techniques in melee combat against spellcasters, getting the following benefits. When a creature within 5 feet of you casts a spell, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. When you damage a creature that is concentrating on a spell, that creature has disadvantage on the saving throw it makes to maintain its concentration. You have advantage on saving throws against spells cast by creatures within 5 feet of you as well. With this feat, all you have to do is get within melee of an enemy spellcaster, and Mage Slayer pretty much does the rest. If the mage tries to cast a spell, you get to bonk them. When you bonk them, they will likely drop concentration on whatever spell they're using against you, and if they try to stop you by targeting you with the spell, you will have advantage on the save. I highly recommend this feat for any campaign that features a lot of spellcasters, because when it's in action, it really puts down the hurt. It is notable that this feat is a little niche, as it doesn't do much when you're not fighting spellcasters, but against spellcasters, it is a godsend, to say the least, which is why it makes number 8. Coming in at number 7, funnily enough, is Magic Initiate. Choose a class: Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard. You learn 2 cantrips of your choice from that class's spell list. In addition, choose one first level spell to learn from that same list. Using this feat, you can cast a spell once at its lowest level, and you must finish a long rest before you can cast it in this way again. Your spellcasting ability for these spells depends on the class you chose: Charisma for Bard, Sorcerer or Warlock, Wisdom for Cleric or Druid, or Intelligence for Wizard. As a martial character, it can feel a bit unfair when your fellow party members are slinging super cool spells all the time. So Magic Initiate allows you to even the odds with a little bit of spellcasting of your own. Cantrip choices such as Light, Guidance, Thaumaturgy, Mage Hand, and more all add some nice utility to your character. However, there's also the option to take a reliable ranged attack in the form of Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Chill Touch, Vicious Mockery, and more. The ranged attacks can be especially good in the early levels before you have any magic weapons, in order to avoid that pesky resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing that a lot of monsters such as werewolves tack on. As far as a single-use first-level spell, Find Familiar is a huge blessing for any character in the form of a fairly reliable advantage on one attack per round, as well as a personal scout. However, there's also an argument to be made for defensive spells such as Shield and Absorb Elements to give your character better use of its action economy in the form of an added reaction. All great choices, and all choices that don't require your spellcasting ability to have a large ability score, because those spells don't work off of ability scores. At number 6, we have Resilience. Choose one ability score. You gain the following benefits: increase the chosen ability score by 1 to a maximum of 20. You gain proficiency in saving throws using the chosen ability. Like Tough, Resilient is a fairly simple and straightforward feat. Remember those pesky spellcasters we've been talking about? Here's one way to give your character some added insurance when facing them, as well as many other monster abilities that are based on saves. Dexterity, Wisdom, and Constitution saving throws are all common rolls made against spells and monster abilities, so adding proficiency to one of these saving throws that your class doesn't already afford you will make your character, well, resilient. Go figure. I would especially advocate taking this feat when the ability score increase is put towards an odd number, providing an additional +1 to checks and saves made with said ability as well. It seems like we've already talked quite a bit about the problem of actually getting into melee with your enemies, and there's no better help to making your character go stabby than our number 5 pick, Mobile. You are exceptionally speedy and agile. You gain the following benefits. Your speed increases by 10 feet. When you use the dash action, difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement on that turn. And, most importantly, when you make a melee attack against a creature, you don't provoke opportunity attacks from that creature for the rest of the turn, whether you hit or not. The flat speed increase alone is huge, but to add the ability to entirely negate opportunity attacks on top of this is simply nutty. No longer will your character be locked in combat with whomever they reach first, providing a level of mobility your DM will learn to loathe the hard way. The dash action, ignoring difficult terrain, is a niche case, but it's always nice when choices provide a little cherry on top. Coming in at number 4 is a relatively new addition to the game, and one I'm sure a lot of you have already heard about: Fey Touched. Your exposure to the Feywild's magic has changed you, granting you the following benefits. Increase your Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma score by 1 to a maximum of 20. You learn the Misty Step spell and one first level spell of your choice. The first level spell must be from the Divination or Enchantment schools of magic. You can cast each of these spells without expending a spell slot. Once you cast either of them, you can't cast them again until you finish a long rest. You can also cast these spells using spell slots you have at the appropriate level. The spell's spellcasting ability is the ability increased by this feat. Aside from the ability score improvement, which we've already talked about making sure you put in an odd ability score, but I will mention it again here one last time so that it sticks with you. This feat gives you access to spellcasting, which you already know is huge, seeing as we talked about Magic Initiate. Misty Step is one of the best spells in the game, often working as a get-out-of-jail-free card, and you'll be very glad to have it. Besides that, though, you also have your pick of the litter of a number of powerful first-level spells, including Hunter's Mark, Comprehend Languages, Detect Magic, Bless, Animal Friendship, Charm Person, Command, Dissonant Whispers, Hex, Heroism, and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. I ran out of fingers. And that's without mentioning Gift of Alacrity and Silvery Barbs, which your DM may or may not allow, as they're relatively new, so I double-check if you want one of these. Now we arrive at the top 3 feats for melee characters, which I'm sure require no introduction. Coming in at number 3 is Polearm Master. You gain the following benefits. When you take the attack action and attack with only a glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, or spear, you can use a bonus action to make a melee attack with the opposite end of the weapon. This attack uses the same ability modifier as the primary attack. The weapon's damage die for this attack is a d4, and it deals bludgeoning damage. While you are wielding a glaive, halberd, pike, quarterstaff, or spear, other creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you when they enter the reach you have with that weapon, which is 10 feet. For most of these weapons, not for the quarterstaff, sadly. Sorry, druids. A reliable bonus action attack, no matter the d4 die, is something any melee character should be interested in. After all, you get to add your ability score modifier to the damage as well, which makes it a reliable attack for at least 5 damage. However, the real all-star feature here is the ability to attack creatures who enter your reach. That's a possible additional 2 attacks per round due to this one feat. It does require that you use a polearm, but in my experience, some dungeon masters may be willing to forgo that requirement if you really would prefer to use a different weapon. Again, talk to your dungeon master if you're interested in taking Polearm Master and turning it into Greatsword Master or something of that like. All that being said, things really start to go off the rails when you pair this feat with our number 2 choice, Sentinel. You have mastered techniques to take advantage of every drop in an enemy's guard, gaining the following benefits. When you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, the creature's speed becomes 0 for the rest of the turn. Creatures provoke opportunity attacks from you, even if they take the disengage action before leaving your reach. And when a creature makes an attack against a target other than you, and that target doesn't have this feat, which rarely comes up, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against the attacking creature. Any melee character looking to be your traditional tank in MMO games like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy need look no further than Sentinel. Thanks to surefire opportunity attacks against anyone leaving melee with you, and the added ability to reduce a creature's speed to 0 when you hit them with an attack, your enemy will have no choice but to attack you or waste their turn. Granted, they could still attack other characters in melee with the both of you. However, in that case, Sentinel still comes in clutch by allowing you to make an opportunity attack anyways. Lastly, as mentioned above, pairing this feat with Polearm Master can result in a truly degenerate build, as your character is able to attack creatures 10 feet away from themselves thanks to the reach of your polearm, and when you hit them, their speed becomes 0. In other words, they remain 10 feet away from you and can't make their attack. Just don't be surprised if your DM starts metagaming to prevent you from doing this again. Most DMs don't like to be made into fools, so you've been warned. Finally, we have our number 1 melee feat and the namesake of this channel, Great Weapon Master. You've learned to put the weight of a weapon to your advantage, letting its momentum empower your strikes. You gain the following benefits. On your turn, when you score a critical hit with a melee weapon, or reduce a creature to 0 hit points with 1, you can make 1 melee weapon attack as a bonus action. Before you make a melee attack with a heavy weapon that you are proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty to the attack roll. If the attack hits, you add +10 to the attack's damage. Now, there's a lot of nuance to using this feat properly and calculating when to and when not to use the +10 damage effect so that the majority of your attacks land. However, that discussion is deep enough to warrant its own video. For now, let's just discuss why this is the best feat for melee characters. First off, it provides your character with a semi-reliable bonus action attack every time you crit or fell a creature. While this might seem like a corner case, it comes into play a lot more often than you might expect thanks to the large damage dice, either 2d6, 1d12, or 1d10, that heavy weapons come with. Secondly, the +10 damage effect stacks with this first feature, as adding an additional 10 damage to your already powerful attacks makes each attack pretty damn likely to take out a foe. Thirdly, this feat scales very well, seeing as there is no limit to the amount of attacks you can add +10 damage to. Each time you make an attack, whether it's your normal attack, an extra attack, or the added bonus action attack from this feat, you can choose to take the -5 penalty for +10 damage. That's a total possible +30 damage by level 5 without rolling any dice or adding any modifiers. With all that being said, the -5 penalty is a very real cost for all this added power. However, there are good ways to mitigate the penalty so that you can have your cake and slice it to bits too. Namely, granting advantage to your attacks and or the use of the Bless spell. Barbarians especially should take this feat thanks to their reckless attack class feature, which grants them advantage on every swing. However, fighters and paladins can also receive fairly reliable advantage either through the use of proning, the aforementioned Find Familiar spell by taking Magic Initiate, or well-coordinated team tactics. In lieu of advantage, there is also the route of you or one of your allies casting Bless to add a d4 to your attack rolls to offset the -5 penalty. Just keep in mind that if you cast Bless, there's definitely a chance your concentration will be broken whilst fighting on the front lines. For this reason, it's good to pair this strategy with the additional feat of either Warcaster for advantage on concentration saves, or Resilient to increase the reliability of your concentration with added proficiency bonus. And that's the top 10 melee feats for melee characters. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to leave a comment below as well as like the video if you enjoyed it. Are there any feats you think should be included in this list? Let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, stay rolling.